Okay. Justin, can you give us an update on Brennan Cox and Michael Walters in particular?
So Coxie comes out of protocols. He'll train with us today, and we'll see how he goes from there. Sonny's got a knock to his hand, so we're just going to have to see how he handles training today.
So did he go for scans, and were those scans okay?
He went for scans, and it's ruled out. I think it was ruled out a bone break at this stage, but yeah, he's definitely got something going on there. So we just have to see how he functions.
There's been a bit of talk about his form. Do you need to try and find a different role for him to get him into the game a bit more? Because obviously being a small forward can sometimes be starvation corner. Yeah,
we'll work through that. If he puts his hand up for selection and gets through training, we'll work through that. Definitely agree with the fact that we need to find him some space. He's still drawing the Oppo's best defender and most reactive defender. So, we need to look at ways to get him into the game.
Is there any chance that someone like Neil Erasmus would make his debut in the Derby?
There's always a chance, but there's a few things we have to tick off first before we get into selection. Obviously missing a few through the middle of the ground, and we're badly beaten through there on the weekend, so we need to look at a number of different options.
Justin, are you missing any players through COVID?
At the moment, we've got Dave Mundy and, the protocols. Yep.
Justin, the AFL has extended the time for you and West Coast to put teams in. Is that because there are ongoing concerns from your end that you might lose more players, or is it just a precaution, do you think?
From what I understand, we got notified that it would be the case from the AFL. It hasn't been something that we've sought extra time for. So from our end, it hasn't been led by us.
G'day, JL. It's Chadders here. Just a few other players who were in doubt heading into this week. Matt Taberner, what are his chances for this weekend?
He's going to have to get through main training, and he's ticked every box so far. But there's some markers he needs to hit in main training today, and then get through training and feel confident. So so far so good, but he's got some pretty important hurdles to tick.
And Josh Tracy was another one that was in doubt. What do you think his chances are of being available for selection?
Similar, probably a little bit more positive than Tabs, to be honest, just purely because that ankle's pulled up really well, and there wasn't as much damage to it as we might have suspected on the day. So, it's probably looking more positive for JT.
Yep, and you touched on the clearances earlier. What can you do this week just to avoid what happened last weekend? It was, I think, 14-4 centre clearances, and even around the ground, you guys were badly beaten.
There's a lot we can do. Getting back to playing our footy and being on the same page, and making sure we're a really connected midfield group that makes it a ground ball battle and really goes to work. I thought we didn't get the basics of stoppage work right last week, and that can be said around our contests all over the ground. So that's a good start. And as I said before, we'll look at personnel and structure and see whether there's any ways we can support that.
Is there anyone that you're thinking of chucking in there just to give you a bit more presence?
Not that I can mention now, but there's a lot of magnets on the whiteboard, and we'll just have to, when it comes to selection to Savo, see what gives us the best mix and best chance of doing a better job than last week.
And how's Sean Darcy looking? What do you think his chances are of playing?
He's improving every day, and it's going to be touch and go. So we'll do minimal today, but it's a good result considering the action that was there on the weekend. And whether he gets up or not this week, we feel it's a short-term thing.
And beating West Coast last year, how much of a psychological edge was that, just ending that 11-match losing streak against them and going into a derby this year, not having to think about, we've got this history against us?
It's probably a little factor. I haven't really thought about it, to be honest. It probably takes away the burden and the weight of losing so many in a row, but it's a new year, different game. We need to make sure we prepare like we always do. It probably just relieves a little bit of pressure, but whether it's a big factor or not, I'm not 100% sure.
And how hard is it to plan against West Coast, given that you just don't know what side they're going to put out, and there's just so much doubt about who's available for them?
Yeah, it's probably a little bit. We probably haven't gone too deep on personnel. It's probably more style of play, and that's been pretty consistent over the last 3 or 4 games they've played. So probably look more on that side of things rather than personnel. We're a little bit unsure of what personnel they're going to throw out this week, but we're pretty sure that they're going to play the same sort of way as they've played the first 2 rounds. So focus more on that, and clearly there's some things we need to get right in our footy, and we've put a fair bit of effort and focus into that as well.
How much do you call on your players for a response, Justin?
A lot, to be honest. And really, I don't think it needs to come from me too much. We've got a really disappointed group with the way we performed on the weekend. It wasn't our footy. It wasn't where we want to see ourselves playing that brand. And our players are really keen and hungry to get out there and train today, but also prove himself on the weekend and right the wrong of what happened last weekend. So we've spoken about it, but I think the motivation's there from the playing group. They don't need much from me.
What are your other options personnel-wise in terms of people who might come in? Can you talk us through a few of them if you're looking to change it up a bit?
Well, we've had some really strong performances at Peel that need to be rewarded. And you mentioned Neil. You mentioned Connor Blakely's in good form, even though he probably had a quieter one on the weekend, getting tagged. Mitch Croden's played a lot of midfield minutes for us over the pre-season and was unlucky not to get an opportunity round 1. We've got some backs coming back. Wilson, Walker are available. Aish, we played him back in the last quarter last week, and we like that balance. So there is a number of options. But having said that, we want to find a balance between making players accountable and making sure we don't overreact. So that's a fine line sometimes.
Justin, Paddy Sweeney, in terms of Brennan Cox and your conversations with him, has he told you about, I guess, how he's been impacted at all, how he's feeling after sort of spending, a week confined to isolation?
You don't want to get too deep into how it affects every player's health, really, to be honest, because it's just going to be an ongoing discussion throughout the year, and one that I don't really feel comfortable, to be honest, talking about how illness affects different players. But we'll get a good understanding of how he trains today, of how it's affected him, and it's just going to be a real case-by-case situation of how COVID affects individual players. And I'm not sure that it's my place to talk about that in the media.
So in terms of his availability this week, though, are you confident he will be at least be able to put his hand up for selection?
Yeah, I am confident of that, mate. Yeah.
In terms of team balance, obviously missing Nat Fyfe and David Mundy last week, did you feel you were a little bit short, I guess, at the source in terms of midfield at all?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's a no-brainer. They're not only 2 great players, they're great leaders, and we possibly felt that hole of missing both of them last week. But there's no excuse. We need to step up. We need to get that balance right. And like I said before, we need to be a better connected midfield who do it together. There was too many individual battles on the weekend, and that's not the way we want to play our footy.